Right now on Currents News, hate crimes against the Diocese of Brooklyn.
It's obviously distressing and unfortunate that we've seen so many incidents of destruction.
Clergy now asking police to step up patrols at Catholic buildings. Plus, San Francisco's Archbishop has a response to Nancy Pelosi. Mass confusion, retailers' policies for vaccinated shoppers sparking concerns and questions.
It's an impossible task for a frontline retail employee to know who's been vaccinated and who has not.
No rockets were fired from Gaza overnight, but Israel is launching a new round of airstrikes. And supermarkets shocked, the price of groceries keeps going up. In a Currents News special report, we'll look into the rising cost and what you can do.
Well, it's disturbing, absolutely. And, we want to make sure that our people are safe.
2 acts of vandalism against the Diocese of Brooklyn, striking fear. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. Christine is off today. A statue and a crucifix both attacked, the incidents happening just days apart, but over 4 miles away from each other. Now leaders in the diocese calling for additional safety measures. Baby Jesus' head broken off. The second act of vandalism in the Diocese of Brooklyn this week. Now Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio calling for big changes.
Any statue that's exposed outside should be lit at night and also have a camera focused on it, so that will deter people.
The latest incident happening right outside the Brooklyn Diocese administrative offices.
It's clear they deliberately went after the head of the baby Jesus.
Monsignor Anthony Hernandez showed Currents News the damage. The statue depicts the Blessed Virgin Mary holding Jesus. It's a very thick stone, and all of the damage was really localized to baby Jesus' head.
Well, it's disturbing, absolutely. And, we want to make sure that our people are safe and that, their religious traditions are respected and preserved.
It's the second attack in a week. In the first, an image of Christ on the cross was torn down at St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst. The cross has special meaning to the church's pastor, Monsignor David Casado.
It was put up there in 2010 in memory of my mother, who passed in 2009.
An American flag was also burned.
It's obviously distressing and unfortunate that we've seen so many incidents of destruction of sacred images that are really important to our faith.
Police released this video of the suspect in the St. Athanasius vandalism, but no one has been arrested in either incident. The diocese asking priests to be alert and for the NYPD to increase patrols around churches.
Basic tenet of our faith is to forgive, so we forgive. At the same time, it doesn't mean we retreat. We have to stick to our guns and do what we think is important for our faith.
Both the statue and crucifix vandalism are being investigated by the NYPD's Hate Crimes Task Force.
Well, you wonder if it's an act of anti-Catholic hatred. I've been in other parishes where statues have been vandalized, but this seemed very deliberate. It seemed like there was more intent to this one.
The diocese does have the head. They're already working towards repairing the statue to its original form. If you have any information on who may have damaged the statue or crucifix, call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. That's 800-577-8477. The Chancellery and St. Athanasius attacks come amid a slew of other acts of religious hate here in the diocese. A few weeks ago, a statue memorializing Father Jerzy Popoluszko in Williamsburg's McCarran Park was targeted by vandals with garbage in a trash bag. Last September, the Our Lady of Guadalupe statue outside the Shrine Church of Our Lady of Solace in Queens was smashed on the ground. In July, 3 acts of vandalism took place: graffiti at Our Lady of Grace in Howard Beach, the defacing of a statue outside of Cathedral Prep, and graffiti painted on Our Lady of Angels Church in Bay Ridge. And in January of 2020, gang symbols were spray painted on the walls of Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Bayside, Queens. The City Council has unanimously passed a bill doubling fines for vandalism on houses of worship. Bronx Councilman Fernando Cabrera, who's a reverend himself, sponsored the legislation.
Any kind of vandalism will be covered. It is unacceptable to attack a house of worship. Members feel vulnerable. It's a form of persecution.
Fines for vandalizing a house of worship will go to $1,000, which is what they have to pay as an insurance deductible. The legislation will go into effect 60 days after it's signed by Mayor Bill de Blasio, who is planning on signing it when it reaches his desk. Starting Wednesday, New York will adopt the CDC's new guidelines allowing fully vaccinated New Yorkers to take off their masks indoors. There are some restrictions as people must continue to wear masks while on public transit, in schools, healthcare facilities, and homeless shelters. Theaters and arenas can move to full capacity for vaccinated people, but with 6 feet of distance between non-vaccinated people. Also starting this week, new mask mandates are going into effect at a growing list of stores. While some are celebrating the changes, others are concerned for the safety of essential workers and shoppers and confused by the message. Mandy Gaither has a closer look at which stores are relaxing their guidelines for shoppers.
Indoor shopping without a mask. This week, more stores are joining the list of retailers changing their mask policies for vaccinated shoppers. But there's growing concern for the safety of consumers and employees.
It's an impossible task for a frontline retail employee to know who's been vaccinated and who has not.
Starbucks, Publix, and Walt Disney World are the latest companies to relax mask mandates following Thursday's new guidance from the CDC. But the Retail Industry Leaders Association says more guidance is needed to protect workers and shoppers, saying the current federal guidance creates ambiguity for retailers.
We need clarity around how they're going to look at the enforcement of that. It should not fall to frontline employees to be mask police and certainly not vaccine police.
Some, like Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, and Trader Joe's, have all dropped their strict mask policies. Starting Monday, Starbucks says it will make facial coverings optional for vaccinated customers. And starting Tuesday, Walmart employees who are fully vaccinated will be allowed to work without masks. At Trader Joe's, while masks are no longer required for shoppers, employees still have to wear them.
These are our neighbors. These are our colleagues and our friends. And we want to make sure that they have a safe work environment and that they can serve the needs of customers who are coming into their stores.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
Israeli warplanes have launched a new round of attacks on Hamas militants, but for the first time in a week, no rockets were fired from Gaza overnight. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more as the calls for calm grow from Catholics stuck in the middle of the fighting.
New Israeli airstrikes hit near the offices of the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency and the Islamic University. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says at least 212 people have been killed and more than 1,400 wounded since the fighting began. Israeli Defense Forces says rockets have killed 10 people, including 2 children, in the past week. Israel also says that it intercepted a UAV, a drone that was seen approaching the border between Gaza and Israel. Catholics in the region have not been directly attacked, but they're living among the violence with fear and frustration.
In Gaza, the Rosary Sisters School was indirectly hit because around the school there are several Hamas tunnels. Part of the local community has moved to live inside the school because they are safer there. They are afraid of living in their homes.
The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem is calling for calm on both sides of the conflict. He asks the world to not forget the situation in the Holy Land and to pray for peace and justice.
This brutality that has exploded had been dormant for some time and we didn't realize it. I think we have to overcome the illusion that interfaith meetings for peace will lead to a peaceful coexistence. And we need to be attentive to the language we use, because violent language leads to violence.
The Patriarch asks Catholics to be more sensitive to the situation in Jerusalem, where the roots of the faith are. He fears that the situation will get worse in the coming days and hopes the Pope's call for dialogue will be heard before it's too late. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. Coming up, supermarket shock. I take to the grocery store aisles to see what's behind the soaring price of everyday food items. And we'll talk to an expert about what you can do to save money while still eating healthy. Plus, what the Archbishop of San Francisco is saying about Nancy Pelosi's response to a Vatican letter. And Catholic school students learn the most important lesson of all, one of kindness.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
If you've noticed a dent in your wallet after a trip to the grocery store, you're not alone. According to the Consumer Price Index, the cost of food has gone up 3.5% over the past year. Fallout from the pandemic that could mean prices are likely to keep rising. But as I found out in my special assignment report, Supermarket Shock, there are ways to save. Making dinner and gathering around the table, it's an important activity to the Carbones, who live in Richmond Hill, Queens.
An essential part of our family is dinner time. We've never strayed from that.
While family dinner remains a constant for them, something they can't control is causing concern.
It's definitely noticeable how prices are higher.
The Carbones' grocery bill is skyrocketing. It began when COVID started spreading in New York.
It's stabilized a little bit, but it's still higher than before compared to last year.
Jenny says a year ago, their average bill for one delivery would be just under $200.
Now every time I place an order, it's either $240, $250, and no matter how I tweak it or switch it around, it always ends up being over $200.
The Carbones aren't alone. With current prices, half a gallon of milk is about $4, a dozen eggs are about $3, and a package of bacon is about $8. That's $15 for just 3 breakfast items. Someone making minimum wage in New York would have to work an hour to cover the cost of just one meal. The pandemic is causing an unusual leap in food prices, the highest in almost a decade, with the biggest jump in animal products like beef, veal, pork, and eggs. Several factors play into the rise.
I think the food sector has been profoundly disrupted, and it's been disrupted on every front.
Nick Freudenberg of CUNY's Urban Food Policy Institute says it comes down to supply and demand.
Because they didn't follow safety precautions in some of those big meat packing plants, a lot of their workers got sick, and so they had to slow down.
The same goes with distribution, according to Phil Lempert, who runs consumer insight group Supermarket Guru.
It broke the supply chain. We didn't have trucks where we needed them. There's containers that used to bring in imported foods that are stuck in other countries.
While much of the U.S. is slowly reopening, these factors are expected to linger. But even before COVID hit, food prices were already heading up with increases to the minimum wage.
Somebody's got to pay for that, and that's going to be you and me.
Other shoppers like Marco Colacito are finding big savings at European grocery store chains like Aldi and Lidl. New stores are popping up all over the tri-state area.
I went to Lidl and when the shopping experience was really nice.
We decided to check it out too. We stopped by a Lidl in New Jersey and found significantly lower prices for store brands and brand names. A dozen eggs are $1.52, half a gallon of milk is $2.22, and bacon is $3.99 for a total of $7.73. That's almost a 50% difference from average prices.
To me, it's to supplement some of my other shopping. I think that's the best way that we're using it right now. But it's making a significant difference in, with the dollar, with stretching the dollar.
And there are still other ways to save. For families looking to cut costs, Phil suggests slowing down. That might sound silly, but since the pandemic hit, a person's average trip to the grocery store has dropped from 22 minutes about 2 times a week to 10 minutes only once a week, leaving less time to shop around for the best deal. The question is, will prices ever come down? Phil says it will take time.
Because when you think about the manufacturing of food, you can't react overnight.
Even though the economy is recovering, people are still struggling to make ends meet. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is helping. They have food pantries around the Diocese of Brooklyn. If you need help or know a family who's experiencing food insecurity, call 718-722-6001 or go to their website, ccbq.org. Trying to stay on budget while food prices rise has many people finding it hard to maintain healthy eating habits. Caitlin, self-licensed nutritionist and blogger behind Frugal Nutrition, is here to explain to us how to eat healthier and shop smarter. Caitlin, thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Now, Caitlin, we talked about rising prices in our story. What's your take on why food prices are skyrocketing?
I think there are a lot of reasons. I think one being, the state of the pandemic. Whenever we have a global market, we're going to see major changes when things are happening globally. I also have sort of a theory that it's got to do with fewer people actually being in the grocery store. Grocery stores make a lot of money by utilizing end caps and specific types of marketing. And when more people are shopping online, I feel like they're less likely to make those impulse purchases. And as a result, grocery stores themselves may need to raise prices on other things.
Caitlin, it's funny, in our piece, we actually had a little bit of information about how people are spending less time in the supermarket, so that really ties in there. So you do have some tips for people looking to save money on their grocery bill. Can you talk me through them?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest and most important one, and one that's going to really be helpful for your overall health also, is cooking from scratch. If we look at the cost of the processed food versus the ingredients to make that item from scratch, it's almost always going to be much cheaper to buy the individual ingredients and make that yourself. We do see that processed foods just tend to be ounce for ounce 2, 3, 4, 5 times as expensive as something that you may just as easily make at home. I also think that utilizing certain plant-based proteins, specifically the unprocessed ones, so beans, lentils, certain nuts and seeds, are also a really good way to, get enough protein but also stretch the budget. I believe ounce for ounce, peanuts and lentils are actually the cheapest proteins available here in the US. And so it's really good to try and kind of just mix those in with your protein needs throughout the day and the week. And then the third thing that I really like to recommend, especially if you are in-person grocery shopping, is to try to spend more time on the perimeter of the store rather than going up and down the aisles. When we're wandering and sort of window shopping, so to speak, we're more likely to kind of fall prey to some of that food marketing. The more end caps that we pay attention to, the more likely we're going to give into impulse purchases. And anyone who's shopped with children also knows what happens when they see something appealing. And I think the same thing happens to us as adults.
The protein tip is really interesting because I know that in our piece we found meats were one of the places where prices were really going up. So that's really interesting. Now, what do you have to say when you have a picky eater at home? Any suggestions for parents, how they can work around that, deal with that?
Yeah, that can be really challenging in general, but especially when you're trying not to waste food. So you don't want to serve them something that you're not sure if they're actually going to like. I think the biggest tip to start is really making sure that you're offering both safe foods and new exposures. So making sure that regardless of what the meal is, they have something that they feel comfortable and safe eating, even if it's just rice. And then you're exposing them to something new like bell peppers or black beans several times. So the average child actually takes 15 exposures to try a new food. And it can take many, many more exposures than that to even like a new food. So start with really, really small amounts and go from there. I think that if you make sure that you're not providing or putting on too much pressure and you're really just letting them choose what to eat and how much to eat, you're going to see a lot more success. Sometimes picky eating is really just a form of rebellion.
Caitlin, self-licensed nutritionist and blogger behind Frugal Nutrition, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily.
You can check out some of Caitlin's frugal nutrition recipes on our website, currentsny.tv. The Diocese of Brooklyn is looking to boost parishes and academies online. In collaboration with Net TV's parent company, DeSales Media Group, the diocese is holding a virtual World Communications Day for church leaders. The event includes compelling Catholic keynote speakers and breakout sessions designed to help the churches and schools inspire new ideas for connecting with parishioners and students where they are. The event will take place Wednesday, May 26th between 4 and 6 p.m. You can register at wcdnyc.org. One of the Catholic bishops leading the conversation on whether pro-abortion politicians can receive communion is seeing a sign of hope. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco says Speaker Nancy Pelosi's reaction to the Vatican's call for dialogue between bishops and politicians is a, quote, positive reaction. Archbishop Cordileone further saying it raises hope that progress can be made in this most serious matter. Still to come on Currents News, a tree is toppled by cyclone winds on the grounds of a church, almost crushing everything. We'll show you what survived. And Catholic students in Iowa learning firsthand how a little bit of kindness can make a big impact. India is in the midst of a devastating second wave of coronavirus and was just hit by a powerful cyclone. But sometimes hope can be found in the darkest of times. Check out this video someone tagged us in all the way on the other side of the world. An entire tree was knocked down by powerful winds, taking out everything in its path except for this statue of St. Bernadette near St. Joseph's Church in Mumbai. The person who took this video said the message is so relevant right now. Just surrender and God will protect you. Speaking about the other side of the world, the Vatican has announced some COVID guidelines for their next big event, World Youth Day. The worldwide affair is set to take place in Lisbon, Portugal in 2023. For those unable to make the event, the Holy See is helping whoever chooses to celebrate locally, offering resources that are meant to be ideal motivations and possible practical implementations that will bring out the potential good in each young person. Here in the Diocese of Brooklyn, we are holding a Mass to pray for the World Gathering. That will be this Sunday, May 23rd at 9:30 a.m. at the San Damiano Mission in Greenpoint. Catholic students in Iowa are learning more than science and math. They're being shown firsthand how to make a real difference in someone's life. Tommy Clark has the story.
Inside Kemper Catholic Grade School, these kids are learning about kindness. But it's what's happening outside the classroom that's setting the life lesson in motion. All because a student's family of Hawkeye fans got an idea. With mom by her side, kindergartner Andy Neeland is leading the way to show someone their wave.
So you see Grandma's right up there. You see her?
Deb Neeland is the reason.
Just made my heart so happy, just unreal, just surprise. Just a little wave can make your day.
Especially when you're going through cancer treatment.
I never would have imagined that I would have to be here with my mother-in-law, but if we could have a silver lining in all this has definitely been that.
Because that simple act of kindness has inspired a movement in Carroll.
It started off as a very simple thing, you know, it started off just coming to wave to Grandma and let's make it the whole class and it'll be fun.
Since March, every day, a different class now walks by to wave hello through the window.
I love it! It's so fun!
Deb is having her last look out the window. Following treatment and a major surgery, she is cancer-free.
It's definitely been tough, there's no doubt about it. Positive attitude is the number one thing when you're dealing with stuff like this. It's just amazing, just all the little support through the town, through friends, family, and through the wave, and through the wave.
That was Tommy Clark reporting. Not only do the students wave at the patients, but they also greet the nurses at the hospital each day. And that is Currents News. I'm Emily Drewby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.